Hello, friends. The world is changing fast. We
Hello.
are here witnessing it. Hello, Chris. Hello, Asaf over there in Israel.
Hey,
Hello, everyone who is with us live and in recording. Hey, Crystal James. The world is going. I'm sure everybody feels that time is speeding up so much. Thank God we have the wisdom of Kabbalah and that it's being revealed now to understand what is going on, who we are, where we're going. We're three students of the Kabbalist Rav Michael Lightman, studying those ancient books and being born against our will into this corrupted generation and trying to balance all of these things. Uh, I was traveling. We were doing some college visits last weekend, and got home. We got
What do
on
you
the
mean by
airplane.
doing some college visits? You mean you were looking for a good college for your kids? That's what you mean by
college shopping?
doing college
No,
shopping? Like,
you get accepted at a few places, and you have to see. They're not right in the neighborhood, so you want to see, what it feels like to be there. So we picked a few, and we went. It's funny because we were on an air. Funny, not funny. We're on the airplane, and when we got on the airplane, we had to sit on the airplane for like an additional 2 hours, and then until they told us that the airport where we were going was closed because of weather, and we sat on in the airplane for like another hour. And on the one hand, you're thinking to yourself, it's incredible that we can fly places. On the other hand, you're thinking this is the worst experience. You can't move. You're next to people. Everyone's annoyed,
You were
and you're
sitting
sitting in
on the
customer
plane for
service
2 hours?
more than 2 hours. Yeah, it was absolutely horrible.
Wow.
I mean, no, there's really horrible things like when you guys are getting
Wow.
bombed. That's
yeah,
really horrible. But it's all
yeah.
relative.
Honestly,
Uh,
I would prefer
Man,
getting bombed. I'm
man, the
not
the
joking.
relative, the it's all relative game, man. Since
Right.
the war started here, we're like, my wife and I, like Ali and I, it's always like, whenever like anyone complains about something, but there's horrible and there's horrible. There's like,
Right.
because I
yeah,
mean,
exactly.
dude, the stories, like people, you know, oh man, let's not get in there. But it's like the relativity is Einstein.
I knew
He was onto something when he said relativity. Yeah.
I was friendly with a guy in his son is in the same business as me. So his son is in the same business as me. That son's father was a survivor,
Mm,
like hid in like outhouses kind of stuff. Crazy stories when he was like
mm,
12.
Yeah.
Leon, his name was an incredible guy. Lived in Ohio, and I remember saying like Leon. He was always happy. I asked my friend about it. He's like, no, no, of course
interesting.
he has like he can't
Hmm.
sleep at night. He's got screaming in the middle of the night and stuff. But when you see him out like during the day, he was always happy and everything. I remember saying, Leon, like, does traffic bother you? Do like headaches bother you? Like after you've been through Auschwitz, like,
Hmm.
are you bothered by, you know,
Hmm.
idiots on the road? And
Hmm.
he wasn't really bothered, but I don't think he was actually getting the point of the question. Like, is everything like after you've been through Auschwitz, so like that's like 100. So anything else that happens to life is it like up to comes up to like 20 20? You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
nothing
Hmm.
ever bothers you, or no, like everything kind of constantly is
Mm.
adjusting. Anyway, that's not the point of the
Yeah.
story, but
No,
it's
no, it's a
interesting to
it's,
think
a, it's an
of
interesting
as
question for
humans.
sure. Yeah.
That definitely a thought experiment. It's the same thing. Like,
It's
So
you could have had $1 billion. Do you ever forget about having $1 billion? Probably not. Because then if you lose it and
Yeah.
you have to
Oh,
live the
that,
rest of your life.
dude. The behavioral economics is all about that stuff. Like that's the and I can't remember the science, but there's a lot of science about how, you know, it's feeling like there's experiments they do with like feeling like you had something and you lost it, versus not having it at all,
Yeah.
and how like anyway. It's an interesting. Our mind
if
plays
you made
games
if you
with us
made a
all the
hundred
time.
thousand dollars,
Yeah.
right? You made $100,000
Let's say you
versus
made it and
you
lost
had
it for like
you no
for
no
like
hold
a
on.
couple hours. Okay.
Here's one.
Yeah.
You have
Okay.
you made 100,000, and
Yeah.
then guy number two has 1 million, but lost 700,000, and now he has 300,000. So which
Right.
one is happier?
There
The
you
guy
go.
with 300,000 or the guy with
or which
100,000?
one is more has more sorrow? And people actually threw themselves off of windows in 2008 when they lost that amount of money, still being rich, still having a lot of money, but just because of losing that much compared to the average person, still very rich people, and they kill themselves. There were a few stories like that in 2008.
Wow.
It's really, it really boggles the mind when you think about it.
Wow.
Yeah.
So anyway, I was on this horrible, sitting on a plane, terrible experience for a
Okay.
couple of hours.
We're
Relatively
still
terrible
there. We're
experience.
still
Yeah,
there.
it was
Okay.
relatively terrible experience. Yeah. So when we landed at Newark Airport at 1:45 in the morning, and it's more BS, but walking through the shuttles wasn't going where it was supposed to go. Whatever, dropped us off. We had to walk. So as you're walking through this corridor, this heated corridor, like in between each, so it's like a pole, and then corridor, pole, corridor, and up against each pole was another little, like, homeless apartment. It was like a homeless person with the blankets. Some of them had cell phones plugged in, and they're sitting there like half inside, half outside in this corridor. And this is, this is Newark Airport. Welcome to the United States of America, major country in the world. And you have homeless. It reminded me of Manhattan, where you see a lot more homeless recently. And in the winter, you see people there like their skin, their feet, their hands are like blown up like balloons that are about to pop, with like the skin all cracked, and just
Yeah.
like, and you look, or like hunched over. It made me think, while I'm looking at them, like, what are they fighting for? Like, why are they living? Why keep pushing for another day? Like, why
Be
aren't
blunt.
they, like,
You
you're
you
talking
want to
about people-
say why
Listen,
don't
you
they
just
put
talked
an
about
end
people
to
jumping
it?
out of,
Yeah,
why don't they jump
exactly.
off a bridge? You're talking about people lost some money and jump off a bridge. Whenever
Yeah.
I see homeless people, not just a person who's like having a hard time, I'm talking about people who are just suffering, just non-stop suffering, like no food, skin's all broken and cracked and sores all over their neck, and just nothing. What is
That's
this
hard. It's hard walking past that
desire?
this than seeing
Yeah,
that.
and they're just
I
like,
know that.
living like on the steps of the post office in Manhattan or something. What is this desire to go on another day? What is that inside of a person that makes them think that, what are they thinking? Tomorrow's going to be better? I got no money. I got nothing going for me. I got nowhere to sleep. And what is that, right? So this is one question to put on the table.
Yeah.
Now, simultaneously, look at a person like Bill Gates, who doesn't have as much money as God, but he's probably close to having as much money as God, right?
He definitely feels like God.
And like Elon Musk, right? Two guys who have tons of money. So Bill Gates is now set on making sure that every person in Africa has a vaccine. I'm exaggerating. He's got a mission to vaccinate everybody and whatever. And then Elon, on the other hand, has got a mission to get to Mars and cut spending in the U.S. government.
Right.
And here's another thing, like here's
Take a
guys that
break,
have
dude. Have a cocktail.
anything-
Get some sun.
anything they could possibly want in the world, they could have. And there's this thing of like, I need to now like conquer.
I gotta go to Mars.
the
I gotta
Yeah.
make the government better. I gotta do the
Yeah. So
It's the same
so
question.
again,
What are you living for? Like, why keep going? Why keep going?
And that's how we came up with the title of this show. What the hell are we living for?
Right.
What is this force inside of people that is pushing them beyond their control? They don't know.
I just want to put this put this juxtaposition really clear to people, because this is really, when you think about it for a second, it blows your mind. You take the homeless person, that situation, you take the Musk or whatever, any rich entrepreneur that just keeps going even though they really don't have to, and you go like, what keeps this guy going another day, and what keeps this guy not resting, and also
Yep.
keep fighting and pushing and doing and
I
trying, and
guess
like why, like just
on the
why,
rich guy,
yeah,
I
yeah,
guess you could say like fame. Maybe like it's such a good feeling that you want everyone to. But even that, if you just keep going through the thought experiment,
yeah,
like at some point, if you know, like famous people or super wealthy people, it's not that they're also miserable at the end because if you go out and sing in front of 50,000 people, like at some point you have to go back home, and at some point,
right.
like if you and so the emptiness
Right, because
for
the thrill
fame.
wears off, and you. Okay, so I had the you remember last year, was it, or was it already the end of 2023, or the no, also the beginning of 2024. Anyway, so I was in the Army Reserves for a few months because of the war here and everything, and I met some people, and so there's a guy who is one of those crazy people who climbs mountains, like real mountains. Like, just he showed
Mhm.
me a few
I've actually
shots
never met anyone
that
like that.
and you're like, okay. I'm like, okay, got it. So you're one of those insane people. I'm like, that's kind of what I told him, and I really researched the guy, like investigated the guy, and it's really clear they they have to, these people who do extreme sports, right? They are chasing the dragon kind of thing, in the that's what they say about drug addicts, right? Or like people who are, but they're like,
Yeah.
basically they need to get the next thrill, they need to go higher, they need to go more risk, more danger. Yeah, they have to, and this is an interesting thing with the mountain climbing, because as opposed to other sports where you're like in direct competition with other people in real time, in this sport you're on your own. That's a very,
Yeah.
think about that mindset. Like, you're on your own. You can, dude, you can just stop. Just stop, come down, have some juice, put your feet up, and relax. No, he wants to climb higher. He wants to go
Yep.
more. He wants, and yeah, it's like it's a mechanism inside the human being that just pushes you, and it's also very unique to human beings, this idea. Like an animal, basically you give it what it needs, and a lion, if it has if it had what it needs to eat, it can go near next to prey and not touch it. And you know what I mean, like that's it, like it's filled
Right. It's
when
not trying to haul it off to and
yeah.
stuff it in its refrigerator.
Exactly. In a day, it'll get hungry again, and then it'll go hunt again, and so on. But in it's not the
Also,
case with humans.
if
Yeah.
a lion or a zebra gets his leg mauled, so that's it, man. He lays
Yeah.
there and he starves to death. That's
Yep.
it. He
Right.
just lays there until the hyenas come and eat him alive, and it's over. But a human somehow lives on those streets like through the winter, and also like why don't they hitchhike down to Florida or somewhere like California, warm, right? Like just to see the homeless in New York City, winter after winter,
So
out there.
cold.
It's brutal.
No, wait. Well, so wait. Let's. Okay. Just like
What
we
is
can
this?
kind of put ourselves in. We can kind of put ourselves in, like, let's say, like, you look at Trump and look at Biden. Like they're both like old, right? They're like older than like my parents, right? One of them is like flying, doing crazy somersaults, and the other one's like barely moving. So they have, like, one has the drive, and one, that doesn't have the drive. But also, I mean, if you look at the homeless, while we were talking, Asaf made a good point that the that you're there. There's this element of freedom. I mean, you don't have no responsibilities. I mean, none, zero responsibilities.
This is something that
That's
our
pretty
teacher
powerful.
talked about. Rav Lightman talked about it at some point. I remember in a lesson, maybe a couple times he mentioned it, how like I don't remember exactly the context. I think it was just an example or a tangent on something, but just like how we don't, probably our perception of reality, how we don't, we also don't, we can't put ourselves in their shoes. And there's like for the homeless person, there's also something that comes with it that we don't experience. Like just imagine, having like being relieved from like off the grid in terms of responsibilities, owing something to society. It's like it's a different
Nothing.
thing. Now, of course,
Right.
the climate, on the other hand, might get you. I mean, it's so it's but it's the human being is such a strange, adaptive. Yeah, I'll go with adaptive. Such an adaptive creature that it's really we're so malleable, and you see that you have people like the mountain climbers, right? And you have people who have everything and don't have to work. Again, take one of those like Putin. I don't know, whatever. They say he's richer than Musk. By the way, like there's a lot of money that people don't know where it comes from or something like that, right?
Right.
Why do you keep like what's the deal, man?
Right.
Just retire and enjoy life. No, the human being needs more than just living, and there is something that keeps the human being trying to live even when when the circumstances are horrible.
Yeah.
And that, I
Chris,
think, really is the
Chris,
That's
you
the
question.
brought
point.
up during the week. You brought up some POW, a runner. He was a runner. He
Zamperini.
became
Yeah.
So what's the story there?
That's just the one famous example. If we're talking about Trump and we're talking about homeless, then you can, and we're talking about this very adaptive.
This weird thing inside a person that even when there's no reason to stay alive,
There's
they
no
want to stay alive. So what is that?
and it shows you that all of us have like a different thing going on. We're like we all are, yeah, we're all a human, but just like our faces are different, we're like completely different from everyone else, right? Unique. Everyone has like this inner uniqueness. So this guy, I don't know if anyone knows the story, but this guy was like an Olympic runner. Well, first of all, he was an immigrant to America to just kind of like show how it's not just DNA, it's life experiences that build you in a certain way. His parents were immigrants, and he was bullied, and then they kind of show how you're never going to be enough, right? And no, I gotta prove him wrong. I am gonna be good enough. And then his brother, told him, just don't go down the route of being, a thief and like a low life. Make something of yourself, and be better than that. So then he begins running. He becomes like a super, fast runner in the community, whatever. Then college and high school, and became an Olympic athlete, very famous. But then the war started, and he got put on a plane, and the plane got shot down, and he became a prisoner of war, and really went through some like terrible situations. And I mean, I don't know if it's obviously not, you're not just like kind of on house
The guy's
arrest
name?
in another country.
What's the guy's
They're
name?
like beating you all the time. Louis Zamperini. But they made a movie about it because it doesn't make sense. Why would they? You can make a movie about a lot of prisoner of wars, but this guy had some special drive to just never give up, right? I can't give up. Like they're beating me to death, but no, but like what, And the question is why? Why? What exactly? Cause that's kind of what you're thinking. Like what? He's like a special breed of a person who has like some fire inside, and I don't know. Where's that fire? Why is it even there? Right? Because you look at all the other POWs that he was surrounded by, and they're kind of like just going through the motions, doing whatever. But here's some special thing. So I just thought it was an interesting example of how
Yeah.
there are unique people, just like we described. The mountain climber, whatever. Just another example of how they're just built differently. But it shows you something about the human element that's intangible,
So
yet you can see it expressed in a lot of different ways.
this
You
guy
know
was
what? Okay,
beaten
we're
and
talking about
starved.
yeah.
Huh?
We're
What?
Yeah.
we're talking about these extreme examples. Okay, let's give a second to think about everyone else in the middle, right? So you have the homeless person, let's say that's one side of the extreme, or the Louis Zamperini example, which is, an extreme case of like of continuing to fight against all odds, right? To fight to live against all odds. Let's say
For
that's
what?
the
To
end.
fight to like pay your next
To just
electric bill?
yeah,
To fight
just
for
just to live in his case,
get a new
right?
phone?
Exactly. So, and you have like the richest person in the world on the other hand, who can't calm down and relax and just has to. And then you have everyone else in between, who's like, just to be. I mean, what is everyone else in between? It's like, okay, I'll take another day. Okay, so I'm not, I think there is some research that I don't want to say some numbers without remembering it, but it's like there's a high percentage of people. There was a research some years ago about there's a high percentage of people who suffer in their workplace, or really don't enjoy it. I don't remember the definition of the research, but something along these lines. And it's a really high percentage. It's most people. So most people are unhappy about 2/3 or about most of their life, right? And what keeps them going is like, oh, there's this new Netflix movie that I'm gonna watch, this week, or oh, there's like I'm gonna watch the Knicks game, or oh, there's a nice meal I'm gonna fix myself when I get back home, and that kind of keeps you going, right? So I mean,
these tiny pleasures, like I'm gonna get Dunkin' Donuts. Like I wake up in the morning and I
Right.
go to work, but I get a
Right.
Dunkin' on the way.
Right,
Then
right.
I get to work and it's like, but I'm gonna order Chipotle for lunch.
Right.
Then I'm sick after lunch, but I say, I'll get home and I'll watch the Netflix when I get home. So you're just constantly putting these small
Like these
pleasures in
little
front, but it's
milestones
not.
of pleasure, yeah,
But
where
here's the
just to
weird
keep you
part, though.
going to the next work day or whatever it is, yeah.
But these things are enough, like with the big question of why the hell am I alive? Like, it's just like it's like, when you go and you see like a trained dog, every time the dog does something good, they give a cookie. Like,
Right.
he sits, cookie. He like puts up his paw, cookie. He runs a loop around the thing, cookie. You have to like constantly just give him the next little thing and he'll do the next thing. And it's just
Yeah.
mind-boggling with as advanced as we are as humans, that these tiny little sparks and these tiny little shells is like what is
and
moving
it's
us.
and what you're saying is also backed by science. This is like what you've described with the dog is like a Pavlovian response, basically, and this works with humans as well. Like how there's the famous Pavlovian kind of experiment where you train the dog to get like some treat when you ring the bell, and then at some point you ring the bell and the dog starts salivating just from hearing the noise of the bell without even getting close to the food. So this is kind of the mechanism, the neural pathways that we're building, and they allow us to go through the day, to do a difficult job, to go through suffering, essentially, to pay a price, to pay a cost in sorrow or effort or suffering, whatever it is, because we imagine some reward that somehow in our calculation is worth it. Or is it really worth it? Or it's just that we don't even consider the alternative of just killing ourselves.
There's sorry. There's this.
No,
there's
it's
this Chinese,
it's
there's
not
a
funny
story
in
of
some cases, but just to make the point, yeah. Go ahead.
No, I seriously always wonder when I see all these homeless people. I'm like, why are they not jumping off a bridge? Like, what is preventing them? There's
I gotta say one more
There's
thing.
a
Wait.
folks-
Just and Bala Sulam says, what article is that? Peace in the World, maybe? I can't remember. That if you put all of the pleasures, Bala Sulam, greatest Kabbalist of the previous century, yeah, for if anyone of our listeners is new here or something. So he says that if you put together all of the pleasures possible in the world, think about your life, all of the happy moments, pile them up on top of each other. Your birthdays and your wedding day, or maybe it's not such a good day for some people, I don't know, depends, and when you got a new dog and all the ice creams you had and whatever, put all of the pleasures of this, whatever it is, right? Like,
It's like you're talking to like a 5-year-old. Right, yeah, okay.
whatever it is,
But it's
like,
for you, it's very significant.
yes, that's true. But so put all of that on one side of the scale, and that's not even like in all of your corporeal life, and that's not even a grain of sand of spiritual pleasure, meaning pleasure of connecting to eternity, to wholeness, to perfection, to rising above the corporeal life of the body and existing in a completely different dimension of reality, way beyond our experience here in this transient physical life. And that makes you wonder, right? If people are willing, you see where I'm going with this, right? I mean, 'cause if people are willing,
don't.
okay, so this is what I'm trying to say. Maybe I thought it was obvious, but if people are willing to go through 80% of their life just to, go watch that new movie or eat something nice at the end of the day and so on, if they imagine what people would be willing to do, how much would we be able to change everything, how we behave on this planet, if we had just a glimpse of spiritual pleasure, just some attraction to it, just some vision of it, some kind of inkling towards that. That's the kind of thing that really boggles my mind. Anyway,
There's
Right.
a
Yeah.
Chinese folk story about a farmer, and his son is trying to tame a wild horse, and the son breaks his leg. And the farmer is just bear with me. I don't know all the details of the Chinese folk story, but you get the gist. The farmer was upset because his son's not going to be able to harvest the crop. Uh, a week or two later, the army comes around to conscript all the young men to go fight in a war. But they can't take his son because his leg is broken. And now he's happy that the kid broke his leg.
Right.
And the story carries on like this. And depending on the perspective,
That's off, you're muted, by the way.
depending
yeah.
on the perspective that we have, all the events that are taking place
Yeah.
mean something different. So you're saying, for example,
It's
I
all
can make
relative,
it
as
through
we
my
said,
morning.
basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can
Same
make
story,
it
yeah.
through I make it through my morning because I'm gonna get Dunkin' or Starbucks on the way in, and I'm gonna order Chipotle at around noon. So if I can make the big coffee last until about 11:15, and then I order lunch around 11:20, and then our lunch arrives at like noon. So I can just kind of string these pleasures together. Now you're saying
It's so funny.
saying
I
that
gotta.
spiritual-
No, it's great. What you just said. I mean, this is something that goes on in people's minds, and they
we're
typically, I
always
think,
doing it. If I finish this, I'm gonna go get a
Exactly.
coffee. I do that, then I'm gonna have a gum, and then I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna get up and go for a
I-
walk.
I
I'm
think-
even gonna take. I'm gonna take a smaller sip so it lasts longer.
Exactly.
I mean, this is such a funny thing because we laugh at it and we're so conscious of it as Kabbalah students, but this is something I found that most people don't even think of. It's like they're doing it automatically. Everyone has this accountant in the back of their minds because it's the E equals MC squared of the will to receive. More pleasure at minimum cost. How can I get some maximum pleasure at minimum cost? It's the thing that dictates all of your thoughts, actions, behaviors, feelings, thought, everything. So, but it's so funny when you start being aware of it. It's like
Yeah.
it's really simple. It's actually
Yeah.
a really simple formula.
But nevertheless, you can't you can't
No.
escape from it because the body still needs fuel in order
No.
to move.
Which
Right.
is
It
something
needs to
weird because when you start studying Kabbalah, it's like, you kind of think like, oh yeah, I have all this knowledge. I'm going to shape my reality. And really all it's showing you is that you're helpless. You know, you're kind of like, I have just because you have the knowledge does not does not mean you can change anything about the laws of nature.
Right.
Yeah.
So when you're mentioning that spiritual reality, like if we're willing to like, if a donut and a big coffee with 2 pumps of caramel is going to get me to 11:30, right? If that's going to get me to 11:30, you're saying imagine, what spirituality would mean to me.
And what you would be
Because
willing to
spirituality is,
do for, yeah,
yeah,
how would
spirituality,
that
let's say it's equal to
change?
like
Yeah.
a thousand caramel macchiatos, for example, right? So it's like, so, but the point is that we don't even have any not only value of that, but any way to even put the inner accountant has. It's like going to a 10-year-old. It's interesting thing. Any parents of young kids here, listen up. Sometimes you're out and you see parents say to your kids, like, if you don't do that, when we get home, you're going to go right to your room. Or if you don't eat that,
Right.
if you eat that, then you can have dessert. But you should understand, as parents of young kids, you should learn a little bit about how humans develop. Little kids don't have any ability to make those calculations. Their brains are not developed enough to say, I'm willing to sacrifice now for a reward later. Right? You
Yeah,
need to understand, like, what's
long-term
the
thinking
machine.
is a feature of maturation. That's
Right.
that's been well researched.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's important to understand what the machine, the biological machine, meaning the child or any of us that you're dealing with, and what are the parameters of that biological machine in order to know how to operate it in
Yeah.
the world. So what we're saying now, like around this Chinese farmer, it's like first the kid breaks his leg and he's totally distraught. Then a week later, the kid's still got a broken leg and he's totally happy.
Right.
Like what it's like it's still the farmer and the kid with the broken leg, and last week he was distraught and today he's happy, and what changes. And this is
Right.
why the story that we tell ourselves about what is going on to us is so important. And this is why the story that we tell ourselves about who we are and what situation we're in is so important, because it now that we're saying it may be like the homeless person is
Yeah.
just only, his story ends like in 1 second. You know what I mean? He doesn't have a long term what's going to happen tomorrow.
That's
It's just,
interesting.
he's just thinking like, what can I do to get to the next second?
In an
What can I do to
hour,
get to
I
the
know
next
where I
second?
need to go to get a hot soup.
That's it.
Like that's it.
the end of reality. And it's so much
Interesting.
more. It's like living like a bird. A bird's not really even if a bird is making a nest, he's not
It's all
thinking
instinct.
about the
Yeah,
winter.
it's all instinct. Yeah,
He's just thinking, I just need a
ants
stick. I
keep
just
food
need
for the
that.
winter. It's just
Yeah.
it's all instincts. It's there's no planning. There's no interesting. It's an interesting question.
Wow.
I wonder if
Wow.
someone researched that.
I have like 50
we
different
should
tangents I could go to.
yeah, no, we
Go
could.
ahead.
It'll be interesting to go into that and see if anyone really did some anthropological, let's say, qualitative research on homeless people. Because I mean, it's a big part of the human population globally, and it's interesting. They're living off the grid in many ways. And what you're saying is like there might be living off the grid mentally as well, like very different planning mechanisms, very different thinking mechanisms, thinking patterns. No, I'm sure there's also a lot of addiction there and all that, but yeah, it's interesting. Anyways,
That reminds me,
yeah.
we talked about it a little bit on when we were kind of preparing, where we like the birds with the sticks. I just got to get the stick or the straw or whatever. It's like we always kind of anthropomorphize all animals too. Like, oh, he found a straw. He thinks it's cute for his nest. He's gonna bring it back. And adding all these kind of different like human elements to it. Or yeah, and so it's like, yeah, they're running on instinct. And it's kind of funny because Seth, I don't know if you're going to bring this up, but I remember you talked about and Seth always wants to reference some research, but he's referencing really just relevant research. But a lot of times there are there's someone's just so driven, right? Like, I don't know, they start getting into, what was it? the history of like photography in the 20s of like of Japanese something. Remember you tried to bring that, like, who wants to go, why are you so driven to go do that research? Remember what I'm talking about?
Yeah, there was somebody did their thesis on the archaeological examination of pre-World War II photography in Okinawa, or
Right.
something like that. And our conversation was, there's so many of these little niche endeavors and people who've done research about, I don't know, this bird under these conditions, under this. But what's super unique, you think, why do people care about any of that? But after all of these thousands and hundreds of thousands of people have done all of these little niche research about anything, today we're at the point where you can look up, with AI, for example, now everything is known. Why everything is the way it is, even in Antarctica, everywhere you go, every piece of information now is known. Asaf, you had said about this that
Yeah.
the creator's actions are the creatures. What did you remember what you said about the?
Yeah. First of all,
There's a quote from Rob.
yeah. By the way, if I was just I just raised the volume in my headphones, and I'm hearing myself more now. So I'm wondering if our viewers are wondering why I sound like that. It's because I was sick last week, and I have some sinus infection that's happening now. That's why my voice is probably sounds funky. Now I just took the volume up in the headphones, and that's what I'm getting. Um, yeah, I mean we're talking about the question, what the hell are we living for, right? And how that question kind of comes into play from different. It exists in all human beings. From a Kabbalistic perspective, everyone has that question, but we're in different stages of the evolution of that question. And the question about life's meaning and purpose is unique to humans, and what all that's happening to us in life, the story of our life, is essentially, from a Kabbalistic perspective, a step towards evolving that question. Because that question is more than a philosophical question. It's actually a desire to reconnect with the source from which this question comes from, the source of life itself. When people seriously ask, what am I living for? What's the purpose of all this? That is already beyond, I want to climb a higher mountain. I want to, make more money. I want to make the government better. I want to, whatever it is, or just live another day. When people have this qualitative question that is beyond whatever pleasure I can get here, that will get me through the day, get me through the week, get me through life, or get me working hard, or whatever it is, I'm wondering about the purpose of it all. When people evolve that quality, that level of the question, now we're talking about the language is going to be hard here if we just go directly with the Kabbalistic language. But this is the appearance within a human being of the action of the creator to evolve the created being. Meaning everything that's happening to us in life from a Kabbalistic perspective is the action of, let's call it, the general program that governs reality, that governs all of life. And all that we see and saw in the world throughout hundreds of thousands of years of human development, or even billions of years of evolution of the universe, all of that are all of these unlimited amount of activities and developments and so on. They're all part of a single mind, a single thought. That's what Kabbalists call it, a single thought that governs all of creation from beginning to end. They call it the thought of creation, the thought that runs creation, right? So what are we? What's our life? What are the different scrutinies we're dealing with every day? What are the decisions that we're making? it's all actions or sub thoughts, sub aspects of this
like
single
little
collective
agents,
thought.
like little
Like
agents
little,
of the thought of creation.
oh, and now that's where AI really gets
Sorry, I didn't
interesting.
mean to
Yeah,
get you up.
yeah, you threw me to the AI world now. But yeah, and when you think about it that way, that connects your life not just to everyone else's life, but to everyone else's life cycles. Because you are not your current life cycle is an outcome. It's a link in the chain of all that happened so far and everything that will happen from now on. That's another thing. This thought that we're talking about is above time. It's a thought that includes within it all of time and all of space. So what we experience, and we call it time, past, present, future, today, yesterday, right? Like these are we're like experiencing fragments of this thought because we at the moment cannot perceive it in whole. And we call those fragments the movement through these fragments, we call this our life.
Oh, and
So
that
yeah.
brings up kind of, if you want to put that next to the examples of how everything is relative, the horse that broke the leg, right? And then all of a sudden it actually wasn't bad because you couldn't see the whole. You're just seeing this fragment, and that's how you're being impressed. So if you're impressed only by the fragment versus being impressed by the thought, the general thought, the whole, like, yeah, the purpose of all of the fragments on
Oh,
a timeline.
think about the definition of purpose now in this context. What does it mean that I'm looking for my purpose in life? Let's interpret it in this context of all of us being parts, all of us being actions of a single thought, right? So what does it mean that a person, a human being, is looking for their purpose in life? To look for, if you're connected to everything that exists, looking for your purpose means that you're actually looking for what is your unique contribution to the whole. That would be your purpose in the system. So the question that every human being has, we ask it as children, right? The age of 5, 6, typically a child will ask, "Hey, why am I here? What's life is all about?" They just usually don't get an answer or don't even get legitimacy to keep asking the question. And that's why we put this question to sleep. We just kill it and we start living life and we go into the race, right? Kindergarten,
Or you
university.
make up another story that doesn't
Oh,
align.
sure,
Exactly.
sure. It's something to just be able to not avoid the need to actually research the question. But
Yeah.
every human being has that, and that the deeper question we're actually asking is, what is my function in the whole of creation? What is
Yeah.
my unique contribution to the whole? That essentially is kind of what lies behind the question, what's my purpose in life? But it's the unique contribution is not, it's not about what you do in this specific life cycle. Oh, I'm going to create computers, I'm going to create
Well,
there
think
is this is
about
just a limited life cycle. We're talking about an
you,
eternal being. Yeah, go ahead.
think about how much effort we make every day, or how much effort we've made in our lives, and then our great great grandchildren will never know who we are. Probably they'll never know who we are. Like, I know my
Interesting.
grandparents. I knew all four of my grandparents. I knew two of my great grandparents, personally. I don't know anyone beyond that. There's no real good records of anyone. I know names and where they were born and
Oh,
things like
that's a
that. But our
great
great
question.
grand
That's a great thought exercise. Like, and if you met them now, those like great great whatever, would you be friends? Would you be interested
and
in each other?
if not
Would
for
you?
them, we wouldn't
Right.
live, right? So, like, two, three,
Good
four
point.
generations from now, those people owe everything in their life to us. all their hopes, all their dreams, everything is only because what we're doing, but there's no
Right.
connection. They don't know anything about us. They don't wake up in the morning and say, thank you for, for Asaf and Ali for
Right.
making my great great grandfather who made my great grandfather who, my
Right.
grandfather who made my dad who made me. So we're all playing, we're all actually very much like those birds who are going to
Yeah.
build the nest for the winter for the baby birds who will be born in there. But all we really understand is the next twig we need to get. The next twig we need to get. And I see there's this thing going on today in the U.S. with the tariffs and the stock market and people look at everything that's happening like it's a catastrophe, and people, I don't know what is going on that people can't see like the long game on things like that.
No.
Um, everything. Forget about the stock market. I don't want to side rail the conversation, but there's a there's a tendency that we all have to just get the next twig
Yeah.
for our nest and not to see the big thing. And if we, so actually, there's a lot of freedom in that, though. And maybe this
Why?
goes to what Rav was saying, because if I have to if that's what I must do, and you need to get your twig, and the other one needs to get their twig, but somewhere inside of me, I feel that I'm part of everything, and I have another existence that's above just the little sparks, my little Dunkin' Donuts and my little twig and my little thing, but I'm also part of, I am, for example, all of these little niche studies that each person did about the World War II photographs from Okinawa and this and this and this and this.
Just a
Everybody
little
is
twig.
building, like everybody becomes like one puzzle piece of the giant
Right.
picture
Right.
of all of humanity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
all
When
you're
you
really
judge,
responsible for that is we each
yeah.
feel this feel. Excuse me, just one more thing.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
each
yeah.
feel this need, like I need to rule the world, or I need to be the most important, or everyone needs to recognize me, or I need to make enough money for that. Like, right? We're all trying to like get to the top of everything. But if we all find our place and are good in our place, and everyone does that, then we lock into this superorganism of humanity.
You're not
Yeah.
even mentioning you know, okay, let's say that we don't have any need to pick up twigs anymore. We don't have any reason to get the nest because we got robots and AI doing it. So then a person even more so is thinking, okay, well, what's the purpose of it all? But you didn't even mention the point of that being the actual fulfillment then that a person would feel that there's this hole and I'm serving the hole. Right now it's like completely concealed from a person. They don't understand that everything that they're doing anyways is already adding to this kind of like timeline of what's happening. And if maybe, I don't know, you get the example of the great great grandfather or whatever, and if he were to somehow know that Seth is going to appear and he gets to prepare this castle for Seth, yeah, and let him enjoy from all the thing, that's it's a different fulfillment. You're not just stuck in the little fragment and then trying to sip on your coffee for an hour to make it last a long time. You're engaging with some almost, I guess you could say, eternal, kind of like this
Okay.
eternal mechanism.
Let's take it another level. Okay, now we're going really like out there now. Okay, so I think this to some extent, somehow, at least conceptually, people can understand. We're all part of a system. That system is interconnected, and even if you're not aware of it and you don't know exactly how, your actions, your life contributes to what everyone else is doing, and what you're doing is really not for yourself. It's a part of the whole.
Right.
Now let's make it even more difficult to get. That whole is also you. Like all of these other parts of creation, they're also you. You are all of creation. Everyone else is as well. Because we, from a Kabbalistic perspective, we are an integral being. It's like, they find that in cells, you have about, 50 trillion cells in the human body. Every cell is a part, just a tiny, 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 tiny part of the body. but it is connected to the information of the entire body. And what's in a single cell is a kind of a hologram of the entire body. And there's an entire organism inside a cell. There are these crazy, we showed it at some point, there are these crazy renderings of how the inside of a cell might look like when
I
you
don't
go
know.
like,
I don't know if we
the-
showed it. I don't know if we showed
did
that.
we? Anyway, it's
I can't.
insane. It's insane. And so from a Kabbalistic perspective, it's all clear. Because all of reality is built that way. There's no part that doesn't include the whole in it. The collective and the particular are equal in the Kabbalistic language, right? So because everything is built from the same 10 sfirot, from the same uh, fundamental structure. And so the crazy thing is when you're doing something in your current life cycle, in the current day, in the current hour, right? You're actually impacting the whole of reality, and the whole of reality is inside of you. That is a reality that the Kabbalists are describing in great detail over a couple thousand pages.
So what I'm living
And yeah,
for is what?
say it again. What?
So then, what am I living for? Did you just tell me?
So we are all playing a part in bringing that single creation that we are all part of and that exists in each and every one of us. We're all playing a part in raising that single creation to a conscious level of existence that is beyond time and space, that is eternal, whole, perfect. But at the moment, we're just experiencing a fragment of it that we call this day, April 3rd, 2025. I'm listening to a podcast. Or I'm at work, or I'm doing this, or I'm doing that. It's a fragment of a fragment of a fragment of this general huge processing that the whole creation is going through. And whether we like it or not, we are contributing to it. Bala Sulam writes, again, I think in Peace or Peace in the World, he writes that no part of the human system can be never ever judged according to itself. It's always judged according to its influence on the entire system. We're all like cogwheels in a machine. You can't detach the interdependence between the cogwheels. You can, as soon as if something moves, everything else moves as well. And we're just living, our perception doesn't capture that movement. And spiritual development is about connecting to that movement of everything else, connecting to the system that is you. Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
I think I told you guys that on Tuesday nights we're learning in that Kabbalah class with the preface to the Book of Zohar,
Yeah.
and Bala Salam spends so much time going into perception of reality, uh, because it's like that the Chinese farmer parable. It's the same exact situation. We need to hear from the Kabbalists what is the correct story about what is going on, because the brain of its, Newton said the world is fixed. That's how we all approach the world. I am looking at this world outside of me that's hostile. I'm looking at this world outside of me that's full of problems, and this world needs to be fixed so that life is better for me. And comes the Kabbalist and says it's all everything outside of you is a projection of what's inside of you. If you don't hear that story, you're spending your entire life trying to fix something on the outside.
Right. Major point.
Which is also part of
Major
the process,
difference.
though. It's part of this kind of figuring out what's going on. It's this making, quote unquote,
Right.
mistakes.
Also, really interesting, and there's many discernments in this, and you always have to warn students in the wisdom of Kabbalah. You can't take one sentence and tattoo it on you and build your whole perception of reality about that. Because look at science, which has been really clear in the last 500 years to help us understand this. You start with Newtonian physics, which means everything is predictable. If I kick the
Right.
ball with this much force and that much friction in this direction, it's going to end up over there after 6.8 seconds. That is real. That's how airplanes fly. That's how cars work. Everything, because we can predict this reality. But then you get to Einstein, and Einstein says, hold on, everything is relative. And then you get to quantum physics and say, well, actually, things are in multiple places at the same time.
Yeah.
But all of those dimensions are real. It
Yeah.
doesn't mean just because quantum physics is real, or just because Einstein is correct about relativity, it means that we can't fly planes anymore, or that we can't trust that when we put our foot down, that it's not going to fall through the floor. So we're starting, with this kind of Newtonian level where I need to eat, I need to deal with this reality, I need to grab my one twig and my Dunkin' on the way to work, and I need to do my one thing.
Again with the
But
Duncan.
it's not again with the Dunkin' Donuts. But that's not where the story ends. We also are part of this much bigger story.
Yes.
We
yeah.
are
And
part
all
of-
what the point you're making is all the levels they exist simultaneously. And the Kabbalist lives in all of them. It's like this is very interesting. Actually, it's gonna get a little nerdy, but I mean, there's a whole debate in science because of these earth-shattering findings from quantum mechanics and so forth, like quantum entanglement and the observer problem. And we're not gonna get into this now at the end of the show, but basically they're finding a lot of things that imply that our reality, time, space, matter, these are not the fundamental reality, which is opposite to what Newton thought, right? Because Newton said time, space, they're independent from each other, and they're here. They're like the stage on which everything happens, right? Everything happens in time and space. Then comes Einstein, unifies time and space, and says, hey, wait a minute, it's relative. Look at, the closer you get to the speed of light, the slower time moves, and so on, and showed that mathematically and so on. And then quantum mechanics comes and says, no, it's possible that time and space are actually not even the fundamental reality. Now, that creates a huge debate between science and scientists and some, and they throw like arrows at each other, like fighting that. But you're saying basically, or what Kabbalah is saying, all of these layers of reality, they're all working together. They're levels of perception of reality, and you are in all those levels. You are an individual human living 80, 90 years of a physical life, and you need to care about your, just carrying your twig and building your nest in this limited life, but you're also connected to the entire system, and what you're doing affects the entire system, and you're also the entire system. This is you. All of creation is also you, and you're also actually already in contact with the source of life, the force of life that governs reality, that created you, and it awakens you and makes you do all the things that you do so you can consciously come back to him. Everything is happening at the same time on all these levels. None is destroying the other, and we are to experience all these levels. It's just levels of the development and growth of our perception. Anyway, I find that inspiring and really changes.
There's a lot more that we have to learn.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yes,
And we will. We'll be back next week. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Big hug to everyone. We'll see you Thursday, 2 p.m. Keep dreaming.
Bye, everybody.
We've all been hiding under masks, our children growing up too fast. And when the future comes at last, we all must find a way to live in love, y'all. Everybody's right, and somehow everybody's wrong. But if we all don't get along, we all will lose our chance to live in love, y'all. Wake up from the future. Wake you to the feeling that you got to give love. This is your wake up from the future. that you got to give love. Feels like we're living in a dream, like somehow nothing's what it seems. Inside this world of broken schemes, I pray we'll find our way to love all. Think what life could be if I love you and you love me, and all we have we give for free. That's how we'll thrive inside a life of love, y'all.